100% of our committee in attendance here, so that's obviously a quorum. So I'll call the meeting to order, and we have a guest, a rep from the select board. Katie Young is here, and so we'll
Thank you, guest.
We'll start with the minutes.
Of the minutes.
I move the minutes be approved.
All right.
Does anybody want to read them? I haven't.
So there's a motion to approve the minutes that were sent out. There were some a couple of amendments after they were sent out, but Rick fixed those. Do we hear a second? I hear a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That was any opposed? None. So that was a unanimous acceptance of the minutes. Treasurer's report, Susan?
Okay, as of 7/20/22, open space was 248.34. Rider property, no changes, 4,191.32 cents. Hubbardston Preservation Trust is currently at $14,704.31. So that's where we are. I know. It went up, then went way down. And it looks like it's going back up, but I haven't been able to access, it hasn't been online, the monthly.
And the thing you sent out, there was a $1,400 or $1,500 expenditure.
Right, and then it went down.
What was the expenditure?
Is that us, or is that what, we don't know the rec department?
Was it?
Kelly got back to me because I said, expended looks like it's a plus because the total is larger. So she never answered that question. But what I'm going to do...
Who spent the money?
Nobody did, I don't think. I don't know. Money came in? Maybe it's invested. I know I said, are we subject to the volatility of the market? And she sent back, well, it's invested. That's all she said. So I didn't have time to...
My guess it's something like a CD. I don't think they cut into the risky stuff.
Yeah, but in essence, we've lost all the hay money, which, if it's a good hay year, what could we realistically add to that? To 2,500 at least?
Yeah.
Maybe three?
At most.
Yeah. So if...
We've never seen that much in the time that I've been on.
There was one time where it was pushing. That's why I want to do a history, but that's on a winter night when there's nothing else to do. So that's where we're at, though.
All right. Let's see. We'll start with ongoing topics. Destiny's Garden, how's that going?
She's working on her art pieces. She's refiguring out how to do the mushrooms because we've decided, and when I say we, she's decided that concrete is very heavy. And I'm like, yes. So she's been figuring out lighter ways that will still give the same effect of doing like mushrooms and things like that. And she's actually came up with some really good, unique ideas. So that involve like things like PVC and blunt pans and things like that. And they look really cool when they're done. So I'm like, we'll try it and see how it comes out. And that will be a lot easier to lug in. And we'll still be able to take the wear and tear of winters and things like that. So she's working on those kinds of pieces and trying to get all of her sculptures and stuff together. So that's what she's currently working on.
Kate, you know, in recent years there's been some work done with making concrete with, I guess, foam pellets or something to make it really light.
Okay.
I don't know anything about it. Anybody?
Like vermiculite, right?
Oh, maybe they use vermiculite.
I think it's vermiculite.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. So if
And
you
blend it with what?
With vermiculite, and that keeps the density down.
Instead of stone aggregate.
probably
Instead
instead
of
of
stone
aggregate.
aggregate?
Yeah.
So if it turns out she needs something concrete,
Okay. Yeah.
that might be something to look into.
All right. I will tell her.
Kiosks?
Oh,
I actually thought they were going to be delivered this morning. They're in Massachusetts. They're roaming somewhere around the depots of the trucking company.
oh,
Maybe
gee.
they're in Harwood.
they had They had told Travis that they were going to arrive this morning, but they did not, so maybe tomorrow morning. It'll be nice when I actually have them sitting in my yard.
There you go.
And no, I'm sure I didn't tell everybody if I told anybody. I was out there last week with Tim Culkeen,
Yeah, yeah.
and we set the first the first trail junction signpost at the junction of Old Cross and Gates Hill. So whenever these signs do come in, I'll run down there and slap a finished sign on it so we can have one done.
Hey! Exactly.
So presuming that they show up
Mañana.
tomorrow or this week or whatever, in the near future, what are you thinking about?
Next week sometime, and the next week, maybe for the first one at Malone, and then the big day, putting in the 4 other kiosks. Mid-August, the 3rd week of August, something
So
like
is that when you want the tractor? Or you
Yeah.
want it from Malone too? or just-
No, not from Malone.
Okay.
We'll just take Malone.
Okay.
Yeah, Malone is just a trial installation to get all the kinks worked out before we get the tractor.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good.
How much they paid.
Oh, that was, yeah.
Link
that's
Trail,
one
I
of
should
the-
have taken Link Trail off
Yeah.
of there. Is that,
No
it
professional.
was benches?
Oh, they did
Yeah.
get picked up.
Yeah.
They did? Good. So that's the actual final thing that was still lingering on Link Trail there.
The bridging sections that had been left there got picked up about 2 weeks ago.
And,
I'm assuming that
yeah, was the guy,
Mike McGarrett
Yeah.
retrieved them, but it might have been the other people that indicated interest.
oh, could be.
Somebody left a note on the sign that I'd left.
Huh.
I left a sign on them saying,
Yeah.
"Pick these up." And somebody left a little scrawled note. "Can we have them? We'll pick them up."
Ah, jeez.
There you go.
I don't know. Somebody picked them up.
They're gone.
That's funny.
Hunter's Eagle Scout project?
He got the first approval. We're gonna go for a signature tomorrow. And he is currently working on some mock-up signs for you guys to pick colors and backgrounds and things like that. So that way you guys can, you can do whatever you all decide. So that's where we're at on that.
You said first
So that
approval,
approval is
there's
from
more
the
than
scout leaders then?
There's
right?
multiple approvals, yes. Yes, there are.
one. So the gauntlet has to,
Yep.
okay.
Land priority, I was, with the other stuff that was going on, I did not get to anything, but the land priority will get to be a priority this month. How's that? Open Space Plan Subcommittee, now there was a note that we had that we don't need it for a year later than what we thought, so we're still gonna, didn't you send it?
6 months later.
And that was, I didn't bother correcting it,
Oh.
but yeah, I mean the date. It's
so
March. It's next March.
Yeah,
Is when
oh,
ours,
okay.
when ours expires. So we need to get it done as soon thereafter
Yeah.
as possible.
So you're gonna start meeting in the not too distant future?
Yeah, I got a little sidetracked the last couple weeks,
Yeah, yeah, just a little.
but I did send an inquiry to Jennifer McBurney,
Bernie, yeah.
At Montechusett Regional Planning.
Okay.
See what kind of services they might be able to provide for an open space plan update. And got crickets. Which is kind of a recurring theme with them. You ran into it last time we were dealing with them. I know the planning board's been,
What happened? What was the word you used?
no response.
Oh,
Crickets.
cricket?
Just
Okay.
chirping away.
The planning board's been having a lot of problems getting their work products out of them on the master plan. I'm kind of inclined to just not bother
Yep.
at this point.
I agree.
I have all the same capabilities as long as I do it at a time of year when I've got the time. I'll have to brush up a little bit on my data mining of census information. I haven't done that in quite a while. But I think we can do it in-house.
Good.
It just seems easier than trying to coordinate with the uncoordinatable.
The,
I can help with it, data mining. too.
but, we can do a grant that, like, fund some of your time and stuff like that. I think Jassy got a grant to fund some of her time.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I don't know. I don't know what that was.
I'll follow up with Jassy. That was one of my actions, so I didn't do that.
At any rate, I know you were interested, Tim. Who else?
Rick?
Rick? Was that the subcommittee? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Then the that's it for old business that I've got. Then obviously the big new business is that Malone Road project really gained some momentum during the month. So Mark's been out scouting trail options and has done maps, et cetera, chasing down quotes and gray-eyed other things. And Rick's been involved. So Mark, Rick, somebody want to take the floor on this one?
Well, let me speak a bit first and then pass it off to Rick. This gained a lot of momentum, as Bob said, and then ground to a halt about 45 minutes ago. I finally got a price back from the contractor. I was expecting to be surprised on the high side.
However,
It was still a little breathtaking. I was off by a factor of 4.
Oh, no.
A factor of 4 off of his high number.
I was thinking in the vicinity of 50K. Came back with 200, which makes that a non-starter for ARPA funds.
Well, only if we can do without. Only if we want to buy a fire truck, right?
right. That doesn't. Don't give up yet. This is such a good project.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about where we want to go from there.
J-
We've put a there's a number of options, and I don't think the efforts that have gone into it so far are wasted.
Oh, no.
One option would be to dramatically cut down our scope to a point where we thought we could either execute it partially with volunteer labor or get it in. Let me back up a minute. The contractor I talked to was Elaine Sightwork, who's in Hubbardston. This type of project is way out of their wheelhouse. They're a big commercial firm. They do road work, the Haywood Hospital expansion, stuff like that. But they have done projects for the town in the past. I mean,
Yeah.
They did some kind of project on the ball field. And basically, they were the only one. I mean, Fran Elaine was a really nice guy. Gave me some good tips on the scope of work. but he was, they just like to, even though it's not their normal scale project, they like to get involved in town stuff if they can. But basically, he was the only one that was willing to talk to me on short notice. I got no response from other Hubbardston contractors. I had a half response from Brown Excavating in Barry, who is doing the new Mass Central Rail Trail segment down in Hardwick. We were going to meet, and then he got busy, and then he ghosted me. So we haven't. There was half an interest there. But anyway, if we wanted to continue, if we want to try and rejigger into this into something that would be feasible for ARPA funding, we've got 4 days to do it. It's due on Monday. Clearly, we can't get anything back we can't get any kind of a revised scope back from a contractor in that time frame. What we could do is come up with some kind of reduced scope, create our own estimate for what it would cost, and submit it saying that it's an incomplete application. There's 2 weeks to complete incomplete applications, and try and get some kind of a contractor number during that time frame.
What about Tim's idea of the guided tour signs?
Oh, yeah, well,
Can we not talk about that right now?
Yeah, that's that phase 2, assuming this would work. Like the signage and the rope and everything,
Well, yeah.
or sensory
if-
trail.
As a reduced scope project
Yeah.
instead of a trail surface.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
So let's put that on the table. Yeah. Well, it's another way to go, and to the extent that can be pulled together in 4 days.
so the 200 was the larger loop included that, right? It was like everything that was in that plan.
Yeah.
So if we took, oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, so if we took that out, right, and it did by length, wouldn't that clearly bring it down 50,000 or something? Do the math, how many,
Yeah. Well, it's not linear. I mean, you can't.
well,
you can't.
all right, X number of,
But yes, I mean, obviously you can knock a big chunk out of that by reducing the length of trail
to make
that we're
it,
talking about, and that's it's one of the approaches.
Did he give you an indication how long it would take him to do it?
On our walkthrough, top of his head, he was thinking 2 weeks. He didn't specify in the final price what the project duration would be. But 2 weeks sounded about right to me. I mean, the projects that you've done, I mean, both Link and
You just got
Miller's
through Miller's
Falls
Falls, yep,
were about 300 feet
yep,
and about a day
yep.
to do 300 feet. The project that we had laid out was 3,000 feet, so that sounds like about 2 weeks. Yep.
Well, I mean, we could both de-scope it and then do it with volunteer labor, so it's not a huge volunteer labor task. What's the timeline for executing?
Executing what?
How much time do you have between when you get your money to when you got to have the job done? Like if I relate it back to a Mass Trails grant, you got almost 2 years.
Yeah, it would be something like that. The funds have to be expended by 2026 or something.
Oh,
They have to be committed by 2024, expended by 2026.
oh, so you don't even get them right away?
There's- Actually,
You do.
you pretty much do.
You get them pretty quickly.
Most of the money.
I thought you said granted by 24 and finished by 26?
Committed by, the funds have to be committed by 2024.
It could be
If the
approved
select board has approved the
and
project,
then committed. And
then you need to commit the funds by,
And they need to be all
24.
spent by 26.
But that's a year and by committing the funds, what does that mean? That that's when they're available to be used?
putting somebody on
No.
contract.
Oh,
Yes, you've got the job for
Yep.
this amount of money.
Oh, so there is time.
Oh, yeah, there's...
Yeah, there's lots of time for
That's not
execution
an
of the
issue.
project. That's
Oh,
not
oh.
the problem. Monday is the problem.
Well, within that scope, I think that we could put something together and, on a volunteer basis and use the money to fund materials and equipment, because it can do that, right?
You can. I mean, a project of the magnitude that we laid out is totally infeasible by volunteer
Right,
labor.
right. I think everybody
Not
knows
gonna
that.
happen.
Right. It shouldn't happen. No. Okay.
But an alternative project or a drastically reduced scope project is more.
Even drastically reduced, you're still talking about a lot more than 50 grand, aren't you? I mean,
Well,
even
from
what-
that contractor, but
yeah. I mean, even if you cut it in half, I know it's not linear, but he's still got to bring the equipment out. He's still got to have the guys there. So
Right.
the only thing would be reduced time.
right.
So, but
Yeah, who's the contractor?
They're called the Lane Site Work.
What is it?
They're Lane, A-L-L-A-I-N. They're over on High Bridge Road.
Well,
And they're, like I said, they're a big player. I mean, we could talk to smaller contractors that could do this kind of work. It's just a timing issue.
Timing issue to get the costs in.
Yeah.
so we do small scope and it's 100,000, which is approximately 25% of what's left. Who knows what some of the other projects are, but is that somewhat realistic? The smaller loop that really needs to be fixed, and then maybe I don't know. I don't think we should give up yet. And who knows about the truck? Katie, I know you're here. And we don't know. Right. It's one of those things that you don't talk about the elephant in the room, but I just did. So.
You just call me an elephant. No! Everybody else heard that.
The
The
truck.
truck is the elephant. And
Just
we
saying.
all don't want anybody's house to burn, okay? We get that. But I'm just saying. I don't know, is it 100? We could work backwards? It's backwards curriculum design. No?
well, if we committed to a reduce of this project, unless we submit a separate application for an alternate project,
Yeah.
if we submitted something for this, then that kind of leaves out having the alternate project, is what I'm saying.
Oh, you mean phase 2?
No, well, whatever. The sensory trail,
Not
nature
really.
trail.
Even if it was just a small, accessible loop that we have now, to have it really be flat, no obstacles, proper drainage. And then that other sensory trail, all we need are posts, the rope, the floats, and signage, which would be expensive if you do braille. But that doesn't have to be done boom. The thing is just a trail that's flat, even, and wide, which that one it pretty much is. Wouldn't it be nice to have something small that's done right for 75,000 then? I don't know.
Suppose you went back to the contractor and asked, so how much trail could you do for 100,000?
Well,
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that Elaine's got plenty other work. And
Right.
He just threw out a number, so we'd have a number, and if he
Yeah.
got the job for that, he'd be thrilled. I wonder if, I mean, we can't do anything in 4 days, but if we got the grant, we'd want to solicit competitive sealed
We would have to do,
Right.
we would have to do
So-
a subsequent bid round.
So that might give us some numbers that were quite a bit lower.
Especially if the scope
Four-
is lower or less.
4 people for 10 days at $100 an hour is 32,000. Then there's materials and,
Equipment. That's
well,
I already went down through that road. I spent some time throwing together some numbers based
Yeah.
upon, Miller's Falls and, which used similar material. We put 300 feet of trail in on pure muck, and we used Franklin County Tech School. That's what the Montague wanted to do, because that was going to save them some money. So they came down with an instructor who pretty much knew how to use some equipment and stuff.
yep,
He didn't know about doing trail work, but I was the educator in that. And so we laid the stuff out. We put it down, because it was a pretty mucky trail and we need to firm it up quite a bit. So we put down more stone than what I'd done before. So we put down about 5 inches of 1.5 inch stone. And then about 2 inches of, what they call the stone that we used was a company called True. Relatively small. Well, they do a lot of work, but they got like a niche. And so they had what they call TRG, trap rock grindings. But it's a,
yep, yep,
it's
like
it's
stone
very
dust.
similar to graded base
yep.
type stuff. So it's got maybe up to 3/4 inch fines and stuff in it. And so it looks good. I mean, I got pictures of it and stuff like that. So, and we did that in like 3 half days. The kids would get there at about 9 o'clock. They got to leave for lunch at 11:30. Sometimes there was a problem at the school, so the whole group had to go back because the instructor had to go in and fill in for somebody else. So that combination of 3 days, and we did 300 feet. So. And they brought down for equipment. They were going to bring down a track machine, but it was apparently a big track machine, and the guy wasn't going to use it on the mucky trails because he was afraid it would get stuck or something. So then I brought the DT-15 out there, so we used that on the mucky sections, and it worked fantastic. They brought down some probably 30, 35 horse John Deere tractors, and they were able to use those on some of the firmer portions of the trail, as well. It was used to load the DT-15. So, and they had plenty of manual labor. The biggest machine that they had that was advantageous was something called the Dingo. It's a mini skid steer. Other companies make them too. But it had a grader blade that was about 3 or 4 feet wide, so you could put stuff down and it could just lower it and help smooth it out, as opposed to eliminating some of the raking work or something. So,
Yep.
but the town's really happy with the end results, and so then they're thinking about what they're going to do now with that trail. At any rate, so that cost them roughly $3,000.
Yeah, okay.
So
That's
that's
close to 200, isn't it?
so that's a walking trail, though. That wasn't.
Huh?
That was a walking trail, right? Not an accessible trail. Because I don't.
Well,
mean
it
to-
could be. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just, depending on what the top surface, they didn't use a compactor. They could have used
mean,
a
the width
compactor.
and so
It was
forth.
6 feet wide.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like for strollers or tricycles or
Huh?
strollers, you could.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I don't mean to denigrate what we've done. It was a valiant first try, our loop. But there are some drainage issues, and it's not wide enough really, and there's grass growing up through it. So it's a good start.
Well, it's wide enough.
Oh, is it?
It's got to be wide enough, because that's as wide as we can go on the property with the CR.
Oh, okay. And that's what?
5 feet.
5 feet. Okay. Well, that's adequate, right? But having just been at the place in Norfolk.
Well, there's also a difference. That was done as a walking trail, so we'll put down a couple inches of stone and then just a little bit of pea stone on top of it. So this would be the doing what we're talking about here would be doing like what we just did out at Miller's Falls. About 4 to 5 inches of 1.5 inch stone, and then a couple inches of a graded base material on top.
And the reason we as a committee haven't tried to do more is because we don't have access to large funds, correct? So this was a chance, an opportunity to not have to go to CPA or the town to ask for more money for open space, because they've been very supportive. But this seems like the opportunity to do it in one swoop and get it done. And the blind aspect is something, and sensory. If you had, how many people did their homework and looked at the PowerPoint? It was lovely. And that, it's 20 years old, but this was redone from the original blind trail. They turned it into sensory for all, which is a nice way to look at it. And that article that you sent us out, I read all the way through it. Oh, this is really neat. And then I read at the end, he's a paraplegic. The author.
Yeah.
Because there he is in his it was an accident on the trail. He broke his back and he's paralyzed. But he has a kayak business. Talk about being creative. It's what he loves. I was just so inspired. Anyway, okay. I don't think we should give up.
Going back to Todd's question, I think we probably shouldn't install a nature trail if we're expecting that at some point we're going to make it an accessible trail because of the construction activities likely to disturb whatever we set up for a nature trail.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it's a sequencing problem. Okay, so being the new person in town, is there any chance Public Works could do the work? Use grant money to rent the small equipment they would need?
Well, I actually looked into that stuff, and like a straw man, like just trying to throw something together for some numbers, which I gave to Mark and stuff like that. And then the number came out around 40,000 or something like that. And that included renting a couple bigger machines. You can use a bigger machine for this kind of job. I mean, I got a DT-15 because I wanted to be able to go on single track trails and stuff. So Yanmar and other companies do too, but Yanmar makes something called a C50 and a C30, which are just like the machine I've got, except they're a lot bigger. C30 costs 50 grand, a C50 costs 100 grand. A C50 will hold 4 or 5 yards of material, like 9,000 pounds of material. The C30 will hold close to 6,000 pounds or something like that. So you could use these machines. They're tracked machines just like this, so they're great for doing trail work under different kind of conditions. Even a C50 fully loaded has got a footprint of 5 psi. So I looked into renting those and how much it was cost per month and stuff like that. So.
I would say that I mean, Travis isn't tremendously receptive to doing extra work like that, but it's a remote possibility. But I think working with the DPW would have some of the same issues of trying to do it with volunteer labor in that on the wooded sections of the trail, it's a lot of handwork. You really need to have a crew of paid laborers to do that kind of work. And I'm not DPW probably. But again, it's kind of scale dependent. If we're just talking about that inner loop, that we want to improve the surface on that,
and then
finish the construction on that, so then it's available for whatever
the sensory
other goodies you want to install on the side. That might become feasible on one of these other approaches.
So what?
I mean, relative to de-scoping along those lines,
or whatever.
Well, if you want to de-scope it down to the size that volunteer labor could do it. I mean, 300 feet, 500 feet, or something like that. The project that we just did, you know, realistically, if you were working on it, would be a day and a half. You know, it was 3 days, but like 3 half days with people that didn't have a clue and they didn't have the right equipment. So you could do something like 300 feet, 500 feet, 600 feet, or something, complete a.
I mean, I think we could probably get assistance from the DPW, you know, for a loader, you know, an operator and a loader,
Or,
which is part of what you need.
yeah,
I don't see him mobilizing a crew to.
So how does that write up?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you cost it up, and how do you write it up for Monday?
well,
Well, you could take, I mean, I put some time into what I did. You could take what I did and de-scope it. I mean, what I had came up to be 30 grand or something, but that's for, assuming you had enough labor to commit for a couple weeks, so. But it wasn't a ton of labor, because a lot of it is just machine work, getting it out there. And so.
Renting a machine
Yeah.
that, one of the machines definitely needs to be
That's the whole
rented.
thing, just relative to getting a machine
So
that
it's
can
out
get the
there and use
material
it
out
for
there.
2
Yeah,
days
And this
consecutive.
really lends itself to doing that, you know, relative to Mark's map
Mm-hmm.
and distribution points. I mean, the scheme that I came up with is use the C50 instead of stockpiling way out somewhere. Use that to fill a smaller machine that's suitable for going down the trails. So the C30 still will have a lot of material. You could do, I don't know, what was it, 60 foot at a crack for one load at a time. So,
Do I sense that the committee would be supportive of a smaller scope project and jump through the hoops knowing that we don't have the estimates, but we have 2 weeks to still do that? Or we could just throw up our hands and say, oh, well, I don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, not to muddy the waters
Okay.
even further, but I mean, one of the other alternatives is I could see this kind of project attracting support for a Mass Trails grant coupled with CPA funds.
yeah.
That means the town has to vote on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the time frame becomes
Yeah.
several years more to get
Well,
there.
I think there's going to be a special town meeting, I think, which would be what, October? Does anybody know that?
That'd be November.
November.
Yeah, we'd have to get the trail grant first, though.
Oh, yeah, right, that part.
Well, I mean, I think what you would have to do is get a CPA article approved contingent upon
this.
receiving the Mass Trails grant,
Yeah,
and then get the Mass Trails grant.
yeah.
And,
Lot of pieces
you know,
floating out
puts
there.
it puts you into 2024, maybe 2025.
Isn't there a lot of competition for those Mass Trails grants?
There is.
Yeah, but if you got a good project, I mean, Mark's been involved with those. I just was involved with a lady that was the main honcho of it to put in 9 bridges on Bolton trails, and she won.
Wow.
Because the bridges over there, she did a great job doing a pictorial, a PowerPoint presentation showing all the existing bridges, which are dangerous for anything, really. And so she put that together and put the grant together, and she won.
So it can happen.
So I would put this as, this is desirable of activity and something like that.
I wonder if we could structure the application with 3 tiers.
With what?
With 3 tiers, so, you know, tier 1 would be, I don't know, pick a number, $10,000 in volunteer labor. Maybe we could do 500 feet or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
something.
just relative to the scope you're talking about, putting something together. I mean, I would certainly volunteer my time, but to orchestrate the stuff, and they've done this on several things. The Miller's Falls being, quote unquote, the most formal, if you would.
Yeah.
And what we put that trail down on, you couldn't walk. It was so mucky you'd try to fall. So we laid out the triax, and then that is enough of a snowshoe so you could walk on that to finish rolling it out. And then when we were done, I mean, so that was just using that kind of stuff, using the same kind of scope that was in Mark's thing, you know, relative to the amount of stone that you put down, etc. The only thing we didn't do, and it packs relatively well, it's fine for foot traffic, and just the equipment and the people walking across it. So, but if you wanted to get it really flatter and smoother, then you'd want to get a compactor
Yeah,
on it. So,
yeah. Well, one of the things I looked at, they showed somebody with a walk-behind tamper.
Yeah, and
Compacted.
that's feasible on the small,
Yeah.
the existing small interior
So,
loop.
so you know that could be tier 1, and tier 2 could be, you know, dependent on getting some other funding in the near term, and tier 3 would be long term.
The whole, all the loops. That's a big project.
The loop with the, you know, CPA funding and Mass Trails
or
grant.
do it in 300-500 foot chunks. If you get that kind of time frame, you know, to expect volunteer labor for 2 weeks straight or something like that, that's a little unrealistic. To get volunteer labor for 2 or 3 days, you know, and really the number of workers we had to do 500 feet was 4 people. That's it.
Yeah,
I mean, there were more kids, but they were standing around and
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
to each other.
I went
Relative to working, I'd have to go get kids and say, "Hey, you want to do a little raking?" You know.
What's our existing?
I was
loop?
actually, you know, how we were unloading the DT-15. I was taking material up and getting off, and I was unloading it.
What's our existing one?
Jeez.
What's the length of our existing little loop that we did a couple years ago? Do you know offhand? Roughly.
Counting right from the parking lot, right? In and
Just the part that we did that cuts the woods there.
No, the whole
If
to
we
do
did-
that.
If we did the
Parking
field,
lot.
if we did the field
Yeah.
to make an
along with
actual
the
loop.
stone
Or
wall,
even a
field,
perspective,
and
because you can
back.
talk in terms of what's the length of what we just proposed.
I would guess that it's like 600 feet, 500-600 feet. Yeah.
So, why don't we go
To go all
with that?
around that.
You don't, what, you look,
I think it's probably a little more than that.
What was the length of what we
Yeah.
have total have right now?
3,800.
3,200 without between the pine section.
Divided into 4 or 5 chunks.
the uniqueness about this was the ARPA money was money from heaven, not really from our tax dollars, but anyway, that was the whole catalyst for,
Might be
And now we're
more
back
like
to-
800.
how much?
Might be more like 800.
800. So does that make the time frame a little bit longer? 800? 3 days?
Makes it a 3-day, probably.
3 days.
And it might even be done in the near future then, like before snow flies. No? Because the money, if it was approved, the small loop, and as I look around, I think we can
That
handle it.
part's a nit, whether it's done before snow or whatnot. I mean, the idea is that they just go forward with it.
What?
There's a lot of prep work to do too. So.
Oh, okay, well, no rush then. I mean, but that was the whole catalyst, was the funds were there. They didn't have to go beg, borrow, or apply, because we just got a Mass Trails grant, right? I mean, it wasn't gigantic, but it certainly, so, I don't know. I don't know how often you can jump through those hoops,
Yeah,
you know?
That was my point.
yeah. No, I mean, it's
I don't
definitely a consideration.
Or
guess-
come to the town from open space. I don't,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, my take on it is try to figure out what a scope would be that would come up with the 40, 50 grand that we think, whether that's just the small loop or bigger, whether we get a contractor to do it, but at least we could provide an estimate while we're trying to get some contractors to give us firm quotes.
Are you still enthusiastic about that? If it's just a small loop? I mean, that would have been wonderful. That will be wonderful someday. And we could say to the committee, or to the ARPA people, see, this is what we really wanted to do, but we're settling for this. But, I mean, it's still, I don't know. I mean, I can see why you might lose steam on it, because, it's just this. But it could be a good just this. Am I talking too much? Okay.
You're asking me?
Well, I just happened to look at you then. I don't know.
Well, my wife Deb was really excited when she heard about this. She thinks having an accessible trail, she feels would mean so much to people who don't get out very much. I mean, the stuff that's written into the application.
It matches perfectly.
It matches, and I said something about before I saw the proposal. I said, boy, wouldn't it be neat to have a trail that goes out to Dottie Rock? And she said, oh, that's too far. That's too long. So maybe the shorter loop it might be more suitable for a lot of people.
There's a couple little minor spots in the loop that's here. There's a couple places where the pitch might be slightly higher than you'd prefer to have. You don't have to do it per ABA standards or something, but you want it close to that. But everything else is close. If you go all the way out to Dottie Rock, there's a lot of places where you got some pitches that are well beyond what you'd expect people to do.
Right.
Yeah,
But this particular loop, it's fantastic.
But just in terms of length.
The
shorter...
The length of this, where Mark extended it out to just about the start of the Dottie Rock Trail, and then brought it back around. That new section that he had scoped out was just about dead flat. Perfect.
Is that along the stone wall?
That
is.
See, I didn't go on that walk, and I wish I had,
It's
because...
fantastic. It was really surprising.
Yeah, and at the
you
Norfolk...
see at this point on Dottie Rock, and it comes back to here.
At the Norfolk Place, having the line for the rope for the blind along the stone wall was terrific, because your visual line
there's no
was
question
sick.
about the entire trail that Mark laid out is perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I know. We could do that later.
So that's not the issue. It's just how we're approaching it. And I think the thing that's most feasible and they're going to get the most bang for money is to try and do it in segments and get it down to sizes that a group can do.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
What was the max amount of money that they're willing to give for this?
It's
Pick a number.
There isn't,
Any number.
but we've decided
There is-
that 200,000 is things like, no,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't
No.
think
I
that's
would guess
realistic in
that's
any world.
half the money.
It's half
Yeah,
the money.
that's half. That's...
So, our visit to the workshop, the key statements that were made by the members of the ARPA committee that were there were, they have X number of dollars, so it depends on how many applications are submitted and how much they ask for. And whatever we submit, we won't get more than, and we may get less than.
Okay.
So they may downsize it themselves. They may say, well, we like the idea, but we can't give you that much money because these businesses and whoever else comes in wants some money too. And and then it's they don't recommend, the word that was used was they suggest to the select board the projects they think that they should look at, and the select board makes the decision. And so you're also dealing with, well, what's more important, to the town. The first round of which is on the town website, the first round went heavily to town infrastructure projects. Of the $1.3 million of money that they let the first round, 803 of it went to town infrastructure projects. So that was their, that was what they wanted to do. Like Lombard Road, paving that,
That's 500 right there,
things like that.
which
So-
isn't in the budget.
So if they're,
So that's.
if they're of the same mind second time around, there may be other things. I mean, the fire truck isn't any secret. The ARPA committee people were the ones that discussed it with the other people that were there at the meeting, so it's not like it's a deep secret. They they actually submitted a request, an application the first time around for the fire truck, and it was not one of the ones selected. So basically, you just don't know. Depends on what else comes in and how much they are.
How much was the request for the fire truck first time
I
around?
don't know. They didn't
Well-
share that information.
Let's see, I get a sense of, I don't think we get a solution right this second. We're gonna have to, what do we have to have by Monday? New dollars? And what the plan is? An updated plan and new?
Well, we've, obviously we have the full application of why this would be a good idea.
Yep.
What we would need to have is a scope of work and some defensible documentation of how much it would cost.
So the smaller loop, with all the signage that Tim had suggested, is like a good start. And maybe 5 years from now, there's going to be another grant, but 10 years from now, make it much bigger.
I guess I don't see the nature trail as being that big a bucks. I think if we're gonna try to get some money, we ought to invest it and make the loop, the surface, do the trail itself as long as we can.
Yeah, because the other, we can
The other
handle
stuff we can pay for.
posts,
Yeah.
rope, that's not a
I mean,
big,
we've got that.
it's a
money.
big deal. The signage would be expensive, and that might have to wait, but, yeah,
Well, we don't-
Adding that to the
we don't know that
application
that would
might
be
help get
expensive.
it passed, because I would think that the nature trail part would be a bonus, that the committee might look at it like, oh, well, this is for everyone, not
because
just
it's,
little
it's
trails.
specifically
Changes
blind,
our
and
whole
we
trail.
have nothing like that, and there's really nothing in this area, general area, for that. You have to drive to Norfolk, or a few other places. And they did that 20 years ago and updated it now. I don't know how long. Oh, actually, I ran into one of the people who knew the lady who is their coordinator, Lucy Gertz. But I didn't follow it up because, in my mind, I didn't want to jeopardize the nuts and bolts of the actual trail by getting derailed and off on this. Because this we could handle ourselves, for the blind stuff, except for the signage. But so.
Well, how do we want to proceed? And, here's my thoughts. You could have another subgroup to sit down and try and get something done by Monday within the context of what would be, and based upon everything that we've discussed here, that subgroup will be the ones that make a decision. Yeah, this is going to be okay with a larger committee. But I don't think in this format that we're going to get very far. I don't know. What do you think?
I like your idea of scaling the project down to what we could do and have a long-term plan, a 10-year plan to eventually have that.
Well, it could even be included in this if you include, where this is like a 4-year plan, you do a certain chunk 1 year, a certain next chunk another year, and the next chunk another year. And if you can do 500-600 feet a year,
Right.
which is reasonable, then you get 1,500 feet then, which is half the size of the complete project here. I think.
Yep.
So the wiser.
But
But
you have to-
you have to come up with a number for the application.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so if you do it in stages, they're gonna wanna know what stage you're gonna do, I think. Are you gonna just do stage 1? Is that what you're asking money for? Are you asking for money for stage 2? I don't think they're gonna let us have,
No,
Yeah,
just-
I think what Bob's saying is that you ask for the money for all the stages, but all the stages are sized so that you can
Yeah.
do them with volunteer or ad hoc approach
Yeah, well,
to reduce the total
yeah, it would have to
dollar
be,
number.
it would have to be volunteer. I mean, you know, if we're gonna have to get a contract for 200,000,
Yeah,
whether it's over 4 years or not.
Yeah.
Do you want to sit down and try and
Sure.
hash this out? I mean, I certainly would do that. You want to do that, Rick?
These guys have been working on this.
Because you can only do it, or Tim and I can sit down and work something out and review it with you or something.
Well, you've got the specs that you gave the contractors, right? So we can work off of that.
Yeah, I mean, calculating materials and
Yeah.
rental prices is
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yeah.
The big wild card is labor,
Yeah.
operator time and
Yeah.
labor. That's your big wild card. How are we going to approach that?
And it would require rental of equipment, right?
To do it in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
You need
Yes,
operators.
that's to do it right, right?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
we can
because
operate.
I think I
if
can
you're
do
gonna do a good sized chunk, we did 300 feet, but that was basically using a DT-15, and then some sections of a drier stretch they could use their small farm tractor to do that. But we did 300 feet with two machines, and in just a short period of time. These things, if you're going to do like 500-600 feet, you can do 50-60 feet at a crack loaded at the so you can divide that up, and you could do several hundred feet in the time frame, 400, 500, 600 feet in the time frame we're talking about. We just did it.
Yeah, I don't think the time frame is really the issue. It's, you know, what are we going to do? What's the scope going to be? I think
Yeah.
it should at least be the loop, the loop we did a couple of years ago, which is 800 feet possibly, something like that. So
Well, how do we close the loop on what we're going to submit relative to being a committee activity? I mean, I'd certainly sit down, and Tim would sit down, and we can work out what we think is good, and then
This is numbers.
we gotta have a special meeting of the committee to say, yeah, that's what we're gonna do, because we only got 4 days.
Yeah.
Getting an idea of what we're gonna do is reasonable in I think in one sit-down session, and how we're gonna get back to the committee to say, okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna submit. Unless the committee says, okay, if you can do 1,500 or 2,000 feet and divide it up and put together a plan, then let's do that.
It's Wednesday night. It has to be in by
I mean, this would
Monday.
be much easier if we didn't have to have something totally done, because you could sit down and do exactly what we're talking about and say, okay, here's the plan, but then you're gonna have something you're gonna submit by Monday.
Well, the
4
numbers.
p.m.
Yeah.
Easy.
Is there any chance that any of the other contractors, not necessarily coming up with a number, but if we submit a number for this budget based on the calculations we're going to do, somewhere between now and 2 weeks, having one of the other smaller contractors take a look at it and see if they're interested and find out what they would do for that number.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's just, I mean, you all know, you've dealt with contractors for home projects or whatever. It's not easy.
Well, after the bubble got burst, are you still interested, willing, able to pick up the pieces and try to
What I see, a lot of the work has already been done.
Exactly.
The words, the scope, the descriptive
This
stuff is all
hasn't
done.
changed,
The thing that
except
needs to get
the
clarified is how you're going to approach it,
Yep.
right? And the only feasible way that I see is something that is feasible is to segment it so it's in smaller chunks, and say we'll do it over this time frame.
Does everybody
That's my
agree
opinion.
on that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So we're still gung ho on trying to get even the small loop done.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm hearing, I think.
Well, I'd say that would be the minimum. I mean, you want a loop, you don't want to have him walk
Oh,
halfway.
no,
back,
you
right?
want a
Yeah.
loop, yeah.
So.
But that's another aspect of our trails is the loops.
Yep.
There's short loops, there's
Yep.
a little longer loops, there's a little longer loops. It's really structured to fit just about anybody's needs and time that they've got
Yep.
to be out there on. So if you want, relative to somebody that's got some ambulatory issues, if you do that whole thing, it's a pretty good workout for them. But if they just got a short amount of time, then they can do that too. It's a really,
Does the stuff that Mark's laid out there as far as the loops that we have there, does that lend itself to the kind of stage thing you're
yeah,
talking about?
absolutely.
In other words, the small loop would be,
Well, going out to the end point, if we did the internal loop first,
Yeah,
did the internal loop, this is probably too big a loop to do all in one whack.
yeah.
You might have to do it in two pieces, and just a one-way,
Yeah.
one year, and then do the rest of it
Yeah.
the following year.
I think that's fine.
well, I do. Can somebody want to make a proposal? I'm kind of good. I've raised my opinion. Tim and I will sit down together and make a proposal. Is it kosher legal from a committee viewpoint to say this is what we're proposing?
Yeah, I think so. Since it's your signature that's going on the application.
We'll bring you cake, Bob.
All right. Well, because we're
I have a small
we're just
hack,
kind of going round and round. There's
I mean, if the committee approves the concept, the execution, I don't think has to go. I don't think there has to be a vote on the
All right.
final
We could always hold a special meeting too.
What's that?
We could have a special meeting to vote.
coffee clutch on Monday morning.
Seriously.
What's that?
Do that.
We said have a coffee clutch on Monday morning and vote.
We do want to have a special meeting?
I'm
No, we
just
said
throwing
we
it out.
could.
Oh, we could. Do you
We
have
could.
to, I guess was the
Do
question.
you
That's-
have to have a special meeting?
Or could you just,
Or if you just want to go into the concept and Tim and I will say, this is what the concept is, this is how we're going to segment it. And from what I hear here, I don't think anybody's going to argue. You already know roughly what we're going to propose. It'll just be a little bit more of a detail of doing it. That
Maybe
okay?
with a cap of, say, 50?
What?
If we approve it sort of tacitly now, would we need to at least have a
Yeah, we
cap?
should probably come to an agreement on what we think is a reasonable ask
Yeah,
on this thing
50?
over all the phases.
so
Yeah.
have a quick meeting Monday
Because-
morning, is that what you said?
No, I'm saying we need to
No,
think
just need right
about what
now.
a number is right now that
Yeah.
we think is.
50, does that, I'm picking that
Yeah,
up.
sounds good.
Which was your original wish.
That was my original thinking. That's 10% of the available pot.
Well, I did spend quite a bit of time thinking about this project.
Well, 45.
And
That's 10%.
so that's within the scope of, and the experience that I've had doing this stuff. So,
Well,
I'd go higher just to give the powers that be a chance to cut it to a smaller level.
So ask for 80.
Yeah, 75, maybe 70,
all right, well, Tim and I will
and
take
then be
that.
happy if we get 50.
How about if Tim and I will take that
well,
under
the danger
guidance?
there is they'll
Somewhere
look at that
between
and say,
50 and 75.
absolutely not, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to make it 400, but
Well, again, we don't know what the other things are.
right.
There are businesses that are looking to
Get
ask,
reimbursed or, for
That are-
equipment.
that are asking for capital money for equipment for their
After you put
businesses.
the application in, do you get to be at the meeting when it's reviewed so you can speak?
I don't know, I don't think
For
so.
it.
I mean, if
No.
we put the application in with a reasonably detailed estimate
Yep,
of materials, labor,
yep,
rental equipment,
yep.
and just leave it at that and wait and see whether the committee comes back and says this is incomplete or not, or whether they accept that as a reasonable
The average
estimate.
committee, yeah. Yeah,
But it also gives us the opportunity, if we say 50,000 and the small loop only comes up, 25,000 when you do your estimating, it gives us the opportunity to expand the scope.
Oh, well, the plan was to do all of it, right? Just over a series? That was my
Yeah.
understanding.
yeah,
With
The
volunteer
50,000
labor.
would cover the entire thing, just
Yeah.
doing it for,
yeah.
yeah, that's what you were talking about, right?
Maybe.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
I'm
You
talking
can
about.
see where the numbers come up.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So to have that into a complete document, who would be in charge of that? Because these two have been working, like,
It's-
really. I've
Tim
been their
and Bob are
consultant.
gonna- we already-
Yeah, so they're all
Tim and
set.
Bob
Tim
are
and I
already.
will
So they'll
take
get
care-
back to you guys.
Tim and I would
to-
take care of editing,
All-
because
all
the
the-
only stuff we gotta edit is the financial stuff.
Yeah, that's what
All
I'm
you need
saying.
to do is
It's-
put a
it's
number in the
done.
blank
Yeah.
and give the
Yeah, I don't see a lot,
Breakdown
you've
and
done,
stuff.
there's a tremendous amount of work that's already gone into that.
yeah the
And so much of it matches.
the narrative is that's just words. It's the numbers that count.
All right, so let's do that. You all set?
Do we need
All
a
right.
motion of some sort then?
Well, we still haven't come up with a number.
The-
if-
oh.
if-
I
we need to do
wrote
that.
down 50 to 75K. I mean, 50 was like an initial thing, and Todd suggested going a little bit higher. So that's a ballpark number for Tim and I. So we'll look to see what we can do for something in that range.
I would vote to keep it around 50.
Me too. I was just thinking that.
Okay.
I-
All right.
Because it's realistically what we think might do it, right? I hate playing
Yeah,
games, but I know
no.
you have to, but
All right, so I move that we use the existing application narrative, reduce the scope on it using revised estimates based on the, labor or whatever we can come up with there, and plug in a number around $50,000
Okay.
as that part of the application, and then
Okay. That would just add to
that's a
that.
complete. Then it's a complete.
Per the that estimate. that
It's a
Tim and I
complete
put together.
application.
Yep.
Second.
Any discussion? That we've already had? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good.
and the
All right.
timeline.
What I will do is I'll send you both the scope of work that went out on the RFP.
Good.
Which has the cross-section detail and a write-up of,
I think I got that, don't
you don't.
I have the cross-section.
You do have the cross-section, yeah.
Cross-section of
But
the map.
there's some text and detail that goes along with it.
Okay. That'd be good. Yeah, because we could actually use that to define more of the words to define what we produce.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Any other new business?
We need a deadline on that then, right, guys?
Monday, 4 o'clock.
No, I'm saying a deadline to get that in there, and then who's gonna do that?
Yeah, how does this get submitted?
Yeah.
On their form.
What's that?
On their form.
On there?
Was that what you said mailed out?
Right, it's what came out in the PDF. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's what's going to get submitted.
it's in
Who's
Word.
gonna submit it?
Just
it's in
print
Word
it out
form.
and carry it into town office on Monday. I will pull together the final hard copy if you guys want to pass on your information.
Okay, that sounds perfect.
You okay with that?
You'll
That's a
bring it
lot
to
more work, but we appreciate it. See what happens. Nothing would happen if we don't ask, right?
That's for sure.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
So you gotta get Bob's signature.
True. You around on Monday?
My what?
You around the house on Monday?
Yeah. Yep.
So Bob,
It'll go very fast.
I'll make
just
sure
an
I-
FYI, the information that we plugged in here in the form they wanted the email address of applicant, telephone number, etc. I plugged in your information.
All
He's
right.
gonna see a copy.
Like
of this
Susan
anyway.
says, we'll come visit you.
Bob's gonna get-
What's that?
Like Susan said, we'll come visit you.
With the cake.
All
For
right.
the coffee.
Other new business. No?
Calendar out, hold on.
I talked to Lance Lane. He does want to come talk to us sometime about the whole hay mowing business.
Yep.
He wasn't able to do it tonight, but he definitely does want to come to some future meeting to meet everybody and get the committee's thoughts on what he's doing there.
Okay.
He said he does, right now, there's not gonna be a second cutting unless unless the weather changes a lot. It just hasn't been, there hasn't been enough rain
Oh,
for any
yeah.
regrowth.
No.
But he said even if he doesn't get a second cutting, he does plan to come back and cut some of the goldenrod and the other brush around the edges
perimeter.
like he did last year.
Okay.
Oh, that's right, he did do a little bit of that last year. I forgot.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job. And at that Malone Road field, he'll be able to get a little closer to the edge now because he cut those low branches.
Susan's already got the next meeting.
Yes. It just happens to be August 31st is the last Wednesday. Does that work? Because that's, okay. So that's what we're aiming for. And who knows? Does anybody know how long the process? It's, the ARPA people pass it on to the select board, and then the select board, we don't know.
Select board probably decide sometime in September.
Oh, really? Would take that long.
You can beg to differ.
Yeah, it's
Realistically.
it's gonna be quick.
Quick.
Yeah, the ARPA said the first meeting is, I think, the 7th, after they get their initial applications. And then they're
Which is the,
reviewing everything by the 14th to kick it to us. So then it will come straight to us, whatever they,
in the middle of August.
yeah. And then when it's dropped in our lap, we make decisions, so. I'm thinking by September, like, our end of August, beginning of September. Granted, we do have our first of 2 special town meetings in August.
Two?
So,
Special.
oh yes, we're going to end up having 2. So, it's gonna be a fun
Am I
year.
gonna find out about this in the Barry Gazette?
No,
That's how I
so-
found out about Ryan.
Don't you watch any of these meetings?
No, I don't. Purposely. Sorry.
So, they're fun, let me tell you.
I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
This is the school budget.
Yes. So the school,
Oh,
the school
yeah.
budget is coming up first. We
Yeah.
have to, by deadlines.
Right.
Legally
Gotcha.
have to have meetings by a certain time. So I believe we picked August 22nd at 7 PM in the gym for one. And then the second one will be, we would like in the beginning of November before Thanksgiving. We don't have a date yet because we have to see what happens with the school budget, because if it all gets kicked back, it will start a clock again and it'll have to be, yeah. So we'll see how this goes, so. Yeah.
That's what you got. All right. How about that?
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes, and a big thank you to Mark and Rick
Yeah,
for working on
fantastic,
this
yeah.
project. They
Yeah.
really,
Well
Oh,
done, yes.
absolutely.
yeah, they
Yep.
did a great job, so.
Did a fantastic job.
Yep.
And hopefully what we
Yes, and
finally
hopefully
discussed
you
will
guys
take advantage
move
of all that work
publicity,
that was
yeah.
done.
But it's still not wasted. We learned a
Oh,
lot.
no, I think it's
Well, as
gonna be.
Tim said, it's a plan for the future.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
even if this all falls apart at the ARPA level, there's still other
And I really like
avenues in the
that
future.
new section
Oh,
of
yeah,
trail
the-
along the
the-
stone.
the
Oh, me
pathway-
too. I've got to see it.
Yeah, the
I've gotta see it.
pathways that Mark mapped out, particularly that return path
Yeah,
from the Dottie Rock Trail. That's a gem.
he came home talking about it.
Yeah, that's a gem. It's an easy path to clear too, and you can walk through it quite easily right now. Perfect. We can, to extend it into the usability of that, it's right in with the snowmobiling and snowshoeing paths out there
Right.
too, so.
Right, I hadn't even thought about that.
I'll do a takeoff on the distances involved for various
Oh,
loop
yeah.
options.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
You guys can
Yeah,
use that when you're trying to
Yeah.
sequence it.
yeah, that's great. That would,
Oh, and also before we leave, thank you for all the bear videos. Oh, I couldn't open it on my phone, so I didn't see yours until the other day with the 2 babies.
Three.
Three? There
Three.
were 3?
3 cubs.
oh, yeah, 2 went over. The one looked like it was having a hard time getting down on the wall. He went this way and
They're
that
so
way and
cute.
says, that looks like a long way down.
It needs an accessible trail.
How close is that compost to your house?
About 400 feet back.
Okay.
It's
And your visitor, I think maybe was Papa to that set or something, but the picture of him in the flowers was
Yeah.
like a postcard. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun.
David, do you have any visitors?
No!
What could I do?
Let's go back. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Continue to talk
Move to
about
adjourn.
bears. Do I hear a second?
second.
All in favor? Aye.